Hello guys, we are on a podcast today, 10 minutes inspiration with Denislav Ivanov. Thank you, Denis, for accepting my invitation. It's really an honor for me to have a guest like you. And please introduce yourself so that our viewers knew better who you are and what you do first.
Sure. Thanks for the invitation, Bogdana. Absolute pleasure. And I am Denislav. I am from Bulgaria, but I live in Sheffield, UK. I've been here 5 years now, and I work as a marketing and community manager for a company named Entrepreneurial Spark. Entrepreneurial Spark is an accelerator company. We build and deliver accelerator programs to support businesses. At the moment, the program that I'm currently focused on is called Transform SY, and it's focused on the South Yorkshire region, where Sheffield is part of the South Yorkshire region. And I know Bogdana because I went to Timișoara in Romania for a project for startup boosting, where I delivered the keynote. And I met Bogdana as she was representing the local entrepreneurial landscape in Timișoara.
Yes, we meet in Timișoara, and your story and your know-how really impressed me. That's why I want to share it with as many entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, and because in Romania we need an input, and always it's good to get more know-how from those who have better and let's say more experience than us. And for startups, it's really important that how is the startup entrepreneurial how it's going there, how easy or hard it is for them to find finance, to scale up?
Basically, what I've noticed now that I went to Timișoara and having the privilege really to meet people from the local ecosystem there and to meet entrepreneurs and to learn more about how you guys are doing, it's the biggest kind of learning for me has been that we all share more similar problems than we probably like to think or like to acknowledge. There's always the lack of funding. The lack of funding is something prevalent in really all cities which are not kind of the Londons of the world and the Silicon Valleys of the world and the Tokyos and New Yorks. There's always going to be that lack of funding. On top of that, it's obviously kind of the lack of connectedness between the different actors in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I remember the event in Timișoara. It was a great mix of people in the room. We had people from public authorities, people from universities, entrepreneurs like yourself, but we also had people from large enterprises. I think there was a gent from Continental. I remember that I asked, for example, Paul from Linnell Engineering, and I asked him how many times he's met the people in the room, and he really said, well, not many. Some of them he was meeting for the first time. So in our region, the biggest problems are really similar. It's the lack of funding for startups, especially in the very early stage. We're talking at the time when you need money to validate your product. And then the other problem that we have is, again, this connectedness. And the things that we're doing to solve them is that we've just created basically an angel investment organization, which is going to try to match angel investors and startups to provide that early cash for startups to be able to get off the ground. And then the other thing that we're doing to solve the connectedness issue is that we have started something called the South Yorkshire Incubation and Accelerator Network to try and have a better communication and dialogue between the different organizations. So this is where we are at the moment. And as I said, the problems that we have are much more similar than I expected. And so it was kind of, I don't know, relaxing to see that we're not the only ones struggle with this thing. It's always better to share a problem between two heads, or in our case, so many heads.
That's true. And to get it more interesting, can you share with us, let's say, top 5 advice for startup? Like, for example, if somebody make a company, let's say in innovative domain, or I don't know, IT,
Yep.
What should they do, like in short, to give them a little advice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great question. And I just wanted to say before I start that my experience with building companies is limited to support and to more trying to enable entrepreneurs. So this advice is coming only from my knowledge that I have acquired from really being in touch with entrepreneurs and hearing from them. And obviously, I've told you about the podcast that I ran in South Yorkshire. So I have spoken with a decent number of entrepreneurs, but again, this is just advice coming from a perspective of a viewer of entrepreneurs. And I'm saying that just because I think that anyone that starts a business needs to first of all really trust themselves. But apart from that, if I had to give 5 kind of tips, they would be, first of all, the most important thing is to validate. Always start with validation. Is your product really something that people want to buy and are willing to spend money on? That is, you can't have a business, unfortunately, without that thing. You can have a great idea helping a lot of people, but if you're not making money, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to pay yourself, pay your employees, and sustain the business. And the second part is really, again, about business model. Nail the business model early, because having healthy financial numbers also attracts investors. It attracts media attention, and media attention attracts more customers. So really nail the business model early. The third one is network consistently and just proactively. Go to events, try to meet as many people as possible, and really be targeting the people that you spend the most time with. But apart from that, really try to expand your social circle as much as you can, because you're having a really strong network is great, because people are really the ones that bring value in certain areas when you need knowledge or when you need other contacts as well. The fourth thing would be, I would say, always educate yourself. Like, entrepreneurs need to, basically, our world is moving really fast and things are always changing. You work in marketing. Marketing is very digitalized now, and there's new software and new tools to use every day. And for me, getting into marketing has been really difficult, honestly. Just navigating all of these different digital tools, like learning how to use MailChimp is a job on its own, and doing all the synchronizations is really difficult. And to be able to update your knowledge consistently, again, it takes focus, it takes determination, and it takes really a set of skills to be able to learn a lot of new information every day and every week. And then the fifth advice I would give is to continuously speak with the customer. There is a process which I really like, which is called customer development. And it's all about really just keep talking with your customers, the people that are using your service or product. Keep asking them, what do they like? What do they not like? There are organizations that think that once you start selling your product, you don't need really to talk about your customers anymore, and you kind of know the answers, what needs to be added as features and things like that. But no, it's always about the customers. It's always about getting the information from them. So continuously speak with your customers. I would recommend the book here. There's a book by Cindy Alvarez called Lean Customer Development. Yep. And it's a very practical book about how to communicate and keep getting value from your customers even after you start selling to them and your business is in a good shape. It's a brilliant book. So I recommend it to everyone to read it.
Great. Maybe I will put the link of the book so people can find it easy. Yes, I agreed. And especially now, like you said, in marketing, this is from my experience and from ours, what we see every day. And especially startups are struggling because they are focused to develop the product and they don't have resources. They don't know nothing about marketing. And or even if they know, they don't have the time. There is another problem that they don't have the money to invest. So it's kind of a circle there. So we got again to the lack of funding. And I think this is the main after they have let's say a business core, a good strategy. I think they need to go step by step to implement it and to find the right funding. And of course, accelerators are very good for this. I think this is an excellent way which helping the startups. For example, from your experience in this accelerator, how many startups are, let's say, getting the chance to scale up or to really got the funding? They presenting viable solutions, viable pitches?
Yeah. I think that when it comes to accelerators, it's a concept that can help businesses, but can help a very specific types of businesses. It needs to be a technology business, because when we're talking about scaling, it's really difficult to scale something that you're doing in the physical, in the in-person realm. Like, let's say that you're organizing a festival, and to organize 2 festivals is really doubling the work. So it's really, really difficult. But for example, if you're building a software solution, and to deliver that solution to 2 customers is really not going to cost you anything, which means that technology businesses are really the ones that can benefit the most from accelerator programs, because with accelerators, it's all about really fast.
Okay.
Right. We had a slight technical inconvenience.
Yes.
But yeah, and so when a business joins an accelerator, really the breaking point for a business, in my opinion, comes very early. It's at the validation. That's why I also mentioned validation as the most important aspect for me, for founders to master and to execute to perfection. Because once you execute validation well, you really know, should I put more time, and should I put my life into this, or is this an idea which really doesn't have legs, and I shouldn't be working on it. And I think that most startups really fail because they just fail to come to agreement with reality. They see that there's not enough customers for their startup, but they've either invested money or they have invested their passion and emotions into it, and they just can't seem to give up. In my opinion, once you pass the validation stage, as long as you follow kind of the traditional route of what needs to happen in a business, and as long as you're not a toxic leader, it's not that difficult to raise money. Because when you have when you have healthy numbers, and when your business is obviously scaling, people want your product, investors are going to come, because the investor's job is to find those types of startups. So just nail the validation really, and this is an area where accelerators absolutely could help, to help you to run a couple of experiments and to understand, does my business really have legs, or should I focus on something else?
That's a very good question, and I think everyone should ask himself this. I mean, absolutely. Everyone who has a business in that way. Maybe you have some idea, and I'm letting you to manifest that.
Yeah, well, I just really wanted to talk about Timișoara a little bit, because I assume that your audience is mostly from Romania.
From Romania, yes.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say how really impressed I was when I was in Timișoara back in the middle of May. And what really impressed me in particular was when we went to the university, the Polytechnical University, and I met a professor, or maybe an assistant. I'm not sure what the gent's title was, but he was the person that was responsible for entrepreneurship in the university. And I remember how he showed us the different events, groups that they organize, and how at the end he said, but that's really not enough. We need a lot more. And so that kind of thinking was quite impressive, because here in Sheffield, the university where I studied, we have fantastic infrastructure, and we have fantastic kind of base to organize so many different things and to utilize them. But then, for example, that guy in Timișoara, he was doing more things than my university, and he had the mindset of, oh, we need more. So what I'm trying to say is that people in that part of Europe, really close to my home country as well, they need to have more confidence about the work that they're doing, and to think that they are part of this global entrepreneurial family, and that the fact that they're based in Eastern Europe can only serve as a positive, or not even as a positive or negative. It's just a fact, but it shouldn't be accepted as a negative, because it absolutely isn't. And great innovation is coming from Timișoara, and will keep coming from there, I'm sure.
Yes, we hope so that also.
Yeah.
And we see also that local ecosystem, it's starting to grow, and that's a good thing. And more young young people are let's say getting this track with startups to innovate, to have an idea and take that leap of faith to step in entrepreneurship, let's say, area. And well, that's good.
Absolutely. Nothing happens without taking a leap of faith.
And a little risk, of course.
It's always present with entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Did you have, by your experience, for example, or did you met startups from Romania, or because you mentioned this with Eastern Europe and let's say Western Europe, did you have or met until now some startups who really, let's say, could make some partnership with, let's say, in London or in part of Western Europe, and they succeed in that, like making a partnership or getting funds from there? I'm curious if you met personally somebody like this.
So unfortunately, I haven't met, but I know there's a very interesting story from a Bulgarian startup at the moment. It's called Payhawk, and their story is that they started back in 2017 or 2018, I believe, and they had to move to London because of the complicated and sophisticated nature of the Bulgarian the Bulgarian laws around starting a business, and particularly a tech startup. And they had to move to London. They established themselves. They raised capital. They're currently one of the best developing fintech startups in Eastern Europe, but they're also widely recognized in Western Europe. And they came back to Bulgaria. They built offices here. They opened offices. They employed people. So I think this is a really good story about how a business which was started with kind of talent in Eastern Europe was then moved to London because of really legislative complications, but now is coming back to Eastern Europe and will deliver change. And even now they're working with the current government, which was just taken down, but they were working with it before this to really change the laws. So it makes it much easier for tech startups to be staying in Bulgaria really without having the need to migrate in the Western world. So I believe that while before it used to be kind of seen as a success to take your startup to the Western world, I believe that more and more we're going to see startups from which are located in Eastern Europe but make a lot of noise in the Western world, because as we said, software and technology, it drives it has no borders, and so we're going to see that more and more in the future.
That's excellent, and really the trend is going in that. Everything is going on digital, on tech, on innovation. So the market is free on that, and it's a lot of place in that direction.
Absolutely.
Denis, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure. Our time, unfortunately, it's getting on short, but if you want something else to add to our viewers, I don't know, like advice, or if you feel the need to say something, please.
Yep. Just if you're an entrepreneur, just keep validating and never do anything else before you make sure that there's customers for your product or service. That's the most important thing. So that's for me. And thank you for everyone that's listening.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to get more news from you and from what you are doing and from your accelerator. I mean, the accelerator you work with. And maybe let's say in future edition we will talk about more startups from Romania who went on and succeed, let's say, on Western Europe.
It would be great to do that. Bogdan, thanks again for the invitation.